Hi guys, it's Blackie.
And Bear.
This is number what? Old Wayz 23?
24.
24. 24. How time flies.
Welcome to the moon of yellow snow.
Yeah. We've had an unusually early spring down here in the south, and everything is yellow with pine pollen.
Everything.
Yeah. My black truck ain't black. It's more like corn husk yellow.
Mine too.
Everything. It's just we can scoop up and pick up handfuls of it. Now I understand that you can make flour out of it and you can eat it.
Yeah.
I understand. I ain't done it. Well, I say that. I think we did it as an experiment years ago. Not you and me, but I think we did it as an experiment. But still, I don't remember it. Obviously, it was not very memorable, or I would remember it. But
well, I mean, you got to think about how much pollen it would take to make enough flour to make a loaf.
I don't know now. You've seen the videos where somebody takes a bulldozer and hits the tree, and it's a cloud.
Yeah.
You know, I mean.
Yeah, I've stood in my front yard and watched trees next door. It just looks like a yellow cloud coming out.
Yeah.
In a windstorm.
Yeah. So it could be possible if you were thinking about gathering it. I mean, you basically put a big sock over the top of a big old tree and hit it with a dang couple of baseball bats, and you'd have probably 2 5-gallon buckets of it. So.
A couple of tarps out on the dirt.
Spread out big tarps and catch it and sweep it up. God knows it's everywhere. Burns your eyes, you blow yellow snot out of your nose. I mean, it's just constant. Unusually quick summer. I mean, we've had things bloom out down here in February this year. Here we are, the 8th of March or something like that. And I mean, it looks more like the beginning of May.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, it feels like mid to late April.
Yeah.
But everything, the pine trees, the tulip poplars, the plum trees, the pear trees, everything is blooming. It's just, it's weird because we hadn't even got to the middle of March.
Yeah. Pecan trees have not budded out yet, but they're getting ready to.
Yeah.
And that's normally
that's the last thing.
Last thing. When they bud out, it's over.
Yeah. Daddy always used to say that when the pecan trees bloomed, you knew you were past your last frost.
Yeah, we were done frost then. But we just finished up deer season last month. Now we're starting, turkey season is starting out.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, and me and Bear are going to do a little drive around and a video that you'll get to see here pretty soon, looking for tracks and for signs for turkeys for a spring turkey hunt. But that big old gaggle we got down here in that big clearing, we see them. We'll go down there today and see if we got sign for them. But I went to the shooting range the other day to shoot a video, and I'm putting in on my truck, and as I come around that last corner, there was a huge tom. That bird was 20-25 pounds if it was an ounce. I mean, he was so fat he could barely get running.
He's full of acorns.
Oh God, he was broad, and a long beard on him, and he went to try to get to flapping, and he launched off, and he got about one flap, and that was about it. You know, he has a glide ratio of a gumball. He just does not go anywhere.
Yeah. But yeah, it's getting to be turkey season. And we are starting to see them out moving around. Normally here in Alabama, it runs from around the 17th day of March to like the 17th day of April, somewhere in that area. And I love turkey hunting. It's probably one of my most favorite types of hunting that there is. And I've got a little surprise coming up a little later on in the video, and I'll explain that at that point, but I think you'll enjoy it.
Well, with turkey hunting to me, my first turkey that I got, I didn't get with a gun. Me and my granddaddy had gone down. It was spring, kind of like this, early spring, and we'd gone down to Geneva County to an old friend of his, and we had had a hurricane that fall. And there was still a bunch of pecan trees down and stuff like that, and we were going down to his pond. And Granddaddy was kind of babysitting me. I was 8 years old, and we went down there, and of course he's leaning back. There's a big old pecan tree down right there at the water's edge.
Yeah.
And we got on the pond side of it and leaned back against it, and he'd done dozed off. And I was still watching my little court ever so often. These little bitty things weren't big enough for anything, but you know. Shiners, you know, but it kept a little kid interested, you know. And I heard something, and I couldn't figure out what I was listening to. It sounded like something dragging a broom or something. And of course, this is a working farm, so you got cows up there, you got whatever down yonder, and you know, you're hearing tractors, and so it's not quiet. And I kept trying to figure out where I'm hearing this at. And finally, I turned around and I looked up under, and the bottom of that log was that high off the ground. And I looked through, and what it was turkey walking on the far side. He was strumming and sitting there and puffed up, and he's dragging his wings and his feathers. And about the third time he turned around and came back, he got close enough. But to be honest, I didn't know what I was looking at. I really thought it was a buzzard, to be honest. But I lunged under and I grabbed a hold of the leg and drug him under the dang log, which pinned him in under the log.
Yeah.
And of course he went to making all kinds of racket, and that woke my granddaddy up. He went around the big old log, 'cause that log was 3.5, 4 foot thick, you know.
Right.
And when he went around that big old tree and got to the other side, and of course he wrung its neck, and somewhere there was a Polaroid picture of us standing on the back porch with that turkey and me standing there next to it, you know. That turkey was, when he stretched him out, it was longer than I was. I was a little bitty thing.
Yeah.
I hand caught my first turkey, which I'm sure if I hadn't been 8 years old, somebody'd been mad, but the landowner wasn't mad. The wife was actually pretty tickled about it because she wanted a turkey.
This whole story is why you wear the great hat.
But yeah, they didn't mind having a turkey to put in the freezer. But I mean, that's something we grew up with, was for Thanksgiving or Christmas was a ham or a turkey, and you had to get your turkeys in the spring.
Yes.
If it wasn't going to be store-bought. And then you had to store it in the freezer all the way through.
Yeah, we don't have a fall turkey season down here. Now, if you go about 25 or 30 miles that way, they do.
Yeah. Yeah, we had family members that in the fall, they would go over to family members' land over that way to hunt turkey, to try to get a Christmas turkey or a Christmas goose or something, which they were other ways of getting turkeys that are not legal.
We can neither confirm nor deny that.
Can neither confirm nor deny this, but I can tell you that whenever I was small, I remember my granddaddy giving me a piece of fishing line on a needle and having me sow corn.
Yeah.
Where what you do is you take and you have like 6 feet of fairly heavy line, strong but small diameter line, and we'd make a loop, and that went around a fence post. And then you would sew through a piece of corn and tie a knot, and you'd go about that far, and you'd sew through a piece of corn, you'd tie a knot, and you went and you went and you went, and you strung out about 20 feet of cord or line. Sometimes it was heavy fishing line, and you'd anchor it to a fence post and string it out along the edge of a fence line. And the turkeys would walk along and start swallowing turkey or a goose or a duck sometimes. And as they swallowed it, that line went down, but it gets in their craw and knots up. And then when they got to the end of it, they couldn't regurgitate it, and they couldn't back up, and they were kind of tied to the pole, and you walk down there with a stick and get you a turkey.
Yeah,
that is illegal. Do not do that. That is illegal, illegal, illegal.
Disclaimer, do not attempt this at home.
This was just something that I saw and witnessed way back yonder when I was little.
Yeah, it's a good thing the statute of limitations is right.
Yeah, because I didn't know it was illegal. I mean, Granddaddy said you go down there and tie it in the corner. you know, and then
Granddaddy said it must be so.
we came out, we're going to go catfishing one morning right after daylight, and he stopped, and he turned, and he looked down in the bottom and said, well, we ain't going to get to go catfishing, we're cleaning a turkey. I said, well, what? And there was a turkey just standing down there in the corner. He knew he had walked along eating that corn. So he walked down there with a 22 and popped it clean. We spent the next hour cleaning and plucking a turkey. Yeah. And then once we got it clean and got it put into the deep freeze, then we went catfishing. But, you know, I remember my granddaddy finally telling me after a while, said, don't tell nobody about that, just keep that between us. I didn't know he was illegally taking a turkey. See, I just thought, it's a way to catch a turkey. I didn't know. Yeah. I mean, I caught one by hand, so hey.
And he was with you then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I learned there were certain things that if Granddaddy was showing you how to do it, and he had this certain look in his eye, you didn't talk about it because it probably was not exactly on the up and up.
Yeah.
But now, so was turkey hunting a big thing in your family?
Later on, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Later on. My daddy was a naughty hunter. Mm-hmm. He started hunting because my brother and I wanted to go hunting. Mm-hmm. But he liked to catch his food on his plate, which, you know, I don't blame him. Mm-mm. You know, he came up during the Depression, and he worked to get his food during that time. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, right after the Depression was the war. Mm-hmm. And you know, he just preferred to have somebody catch it for him.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the way my family was. My dad didn't care for hunting. He'd fish a little, not much.
One thing about Daddy, to interrupt you, I apologize.
Go ahead.
He would fish, but he preferred to actually volunteer to clean them. Mm-hmm. And that's worth its weight in gold.
Oh yeah.
He could clean a catfish quicker than anybody I ever saw in my life.
I had an aunt that was that way. She didn't want to go fishing. She hated getting out there in the sun and all that. But if you would bring her fish, she'd clean them. She'd make a deal with you. If you'll bring the fish and you're giving me some, I'll clean all of them if you'll just bring me some. Yeah. And she'd take a spoon, one of the larger serving spoons. That's what she scaled all the fish with, was a spoon. And a little bitty old knife, about like a mora, about that big. Go out there and there was a board. I can see it plain as day. There was a board that was on top of a telephone pole. Yeah. And there was a garden hose for spraying the fish out. She'd take a bucket and hang on right on the end of it so she could do her stuff and rake everything into the bucket and take it down yonder and dump it in the garden. Because fish guts and stuff you put up under your tomatoes and stuff like that.
There's a reason why the natives, when they planted the Three Sisters, corn, peas, and squash, they put a fish in the hole.
Yes.
There is a reason why they do that.
The nitrogen of the fish, as it decomposes, feeds the plant. I know that for a fact. I mean, when I put in my tomatoes, I put fish guts or something, and when I don't go fishing to do it, I just go get a couple cans of sardines. Works just as good.
It's still fish.
It's still fish.
It's still fish.
And my #1 producing tomato plant, I had this last year that didn't quit producing until December.
I saw the plant. It was making cherry tomatoes just before Christmas.
Yeah. I mean, it
really was.
The week of Christmas, I still was getting like 6 to 8 or 10 off that plant a week.
Yeah.
And it finally gave up the ghost right after Christmas. About right around New Year's, it finally gave it up, and I had to compost it. But I saved some of the seeds. I'm trying to get them going again. Because that little sucker worked, boy. I mean, that one was producing.
So, Uncle Blackie, what do we do in the springtime? We've done winter camping and winter hunting. Now what do we do in the springtime? Well,
springtime was running trot lines and replacing where we had ate the larder out of our freezers and stuff, the wild game, and you've just replaced it with deer and stuff you just got. Now it was, in which we've been eating that. You know, for the past 12 weeks, we've been getting a lot of, have been getting a lot of wild game. So you've had plenty of squirrel and rice and rabbit and deer and hog and stuff. Now you're wanting fish or to change the diet up, and so now we're going to shift over and go fishing.
Right.
And one of the things that I brought to talk about was, everybody knows what this is. This is one of those fiberglass telescoping fishing poles. We call them brim busters here in the South because one of the first marketing names, although this one is a Black Beauty, I think. Yeah, Black Beauty. These showed up, to my knowledge, in the 70s is the first time I seen them. Because everybody had cane poles back then. And making cane poles was sort of a little art. And a lot of your farms, you'd see it, where, especially if you had a tall barn with a hayloft, they would take and go cut the cane. It's bamboo is what it is, planted all over the South. We didn't plant this bamboo down here in the South for shade or food. We planted it to make fishing poles out of.
And arrows.
And arrows.
And arrow shafts.
And
but
arrow
it's a naturally occurring grass.
Yeah.
It's like any semi-tropical environment. Anywhere in the world, you're going to have bamboo.
Yeah. But we had the bamboo on the back of the farm, and it was, you'd go down there and you'd cut, 10 foot long, 12, if you had a real nice one, 14 foot. And then you brought them back up to the barn, and that's where you would cut all the nubs off, sand them down fairly smooth. You would hang them point down, where from the butt you'd drill a hole all the way through and put a piece of cord, and you'd hook onto a nail up yonder on one of the rafters, and on the bottom you'd hang a brick. That held it straight, and it had to dry for 2 weeks. And then when it was dry, we had a piece of water pipe that was capped on the bottom end and was full of lacquer. And you get up in the barn, top of the barn, and you had to push that thing down into the barn, into the lacquer, to get it done, or get it fully submerged, I should say. And then you brought it out, and again you hung it until it dried, and then you'd cut off that last section that had the hole in it. That's the reason all the cane poles had that untreated end to it. And that's how we made cane poles. And so, I mean, when we were growing up, it was common to see a cane pole sticking out of the back of a pickup truck.
Oh yeah.
Or out of the window of a station wagon.
Yes. Or strapped to the luggage rack on top of a station wagon.
Yeah, I mean, cane poles.
I've seen that. And cane poles still are popular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you see them around a good bit. Like you were saying, this brim buster style, that's just sort of the default term that we go to down here. They showed up after we were grown.
The earliest I can recall is somewhere in the 70s, about 76, because I remember buying one so I could carry it on my bicycle to go fishing.
Yeah.
Instead of carrying a 12-foot cane pole.
Right. These things, you can see what they fall down in, they collapse down into. This is really good for a pack, for a backpack.
And then this becomes a 12-foot pole.
Yeah.
I think a 10 or a 12.
This one's a 12.
Yeah, 12-footer.
But it just telescopes right out and goes from 3 foot to 12 feet.
Yeah, very limber.
Oh yeah.
But when those things hit, I can remember my aunt, Willa Pearl, and my Uncle Gus, we were going to Lake Fox, and I already had one, and my aunt saw that and said, "Where'd you get it?" And I told her it's a little mom and pop bait place.
Right.
And we went up there and they bought their own, and we went out there, and she said, "I don't know, I ain't got confidence in it. It should break. It's so thin." I said, "I pulled in some pretty good fish. It ain't broke yet." And it held up real well. And so next thing you know, the cane poles are regulated to the loft, and these things are the ones going.
I think it was my mom caught a really big catfish, like an 8 or a 9 pound catfish on one of these things. When you go to set the hook, piece of advice, when you go to set the hook, you set the hook and immediately put it back down, because if you arc the body of the rod over, it's going to snap.
Yeah.
But if you keep it in a straight line, and pull the fish up onto the bank, you could catch a whale. This thing will pull it in.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just you got to realize how to play it. The small ones, you didn't even have to even set the hook. You just lift it up.
Yeah.
And the action of the pole would do the work, which was kind of cool to us, you know, because we remember the old stiff cane poles where you had to have that wrist flip to set the hook, especially on a big shell cracker. And which are most of the stuff that we're fishing for was brim, shell cracker, yellows, perches, even bass, whatever get on the line.
Yeah.
And occasionally you would catch a little bitty catfish on there. I hooked a pretty good catfish one time and played that thing for 30 minutes, scared I was going to break. I only had 8-pound test line, and this was about a 9-pound cat. He'd go to pulling, and I'd just give him line, and he'd get down on the bottom, and the pond was shallow, he couldn't go nowhere. And so I just kept a line on him until, like you said, finally he got kind of tired, and he came up, and I just pulled straight up onto the sandbar, and then you mine now, puppy.
Oh yeah.
Once I get that head out of the water, it's over.
It's it.
But
for a pack, that's a very nice setup for a day pack.
well, this was a real innovation to me because the gear I was carrying at the time, this was perfect for me to take camping and etc. to be able to try to get a meal out of it. And that was our predominant way of getting something to eat during the summertime was to fish, because we're in a place that's full of lakes and creeks and rivers. I mean, you can't go anywhere. Right here's the river. You can't go anywhere down here without having to be on water of some kind. And even these little bitty.
And we breathe the air in the summer.
And
we we breathe water during the summer.
I remember my aunt saying one time somebody had asked her, she said, well, was it bad humid? She said, not that bad, but I did get hit in the face with the brim swimming by. But the other thing I want to talk about right quick, and I'll give you a close-up on this so you can see what I'm talking about. This is a fly rod, but as you can see, this is an automatic reel. Now, the first time I ever saw anything like this was in an automatic. And what it is, I've got a 9-foot leader of fishing line, clear fishing line. And then it goes to my fly line for casting, okay? You press this button right here and it will automatically reel in, taking up all that slack. Now what this was for splat fishing. This is the drag, and this is where you turn to wind the reel up, kind of like a clock mechanism. If I want more tension, I wind it up tighter, and I can hit it and it'll fast retrieve in any slack line I got. Now when I first saw this, and this one's mine, that's an old Fluger. I want to get one like my granddaddy, which was a green Shakespeare. Well, during the 20s and 30s, up till World War II down here in the South, this was used heavily, and it was called splat fishing, S-P-L-A-T. And what that means was, you use this kind of like you used a cane pole. You ran out your line, and you're going to be sitting in the boat, usually with a oar or a paddle up under your arm and holding the blade of the paddle with your hand, sculling left-handed while you use that. So you'd bring the reel over, I'd pull out line, hook it with my finger, and you would cast out. You would do roll cast, which means you would bring it up, turn around, and flip it back out. You didn't do this, you just kind of did that. And the line would take up and you'd recast, you'd redirect. Well, I'm in a boat easing along the edge of a canoe, and I've got a paddle stuck up to my armpit like this, and I grip the body, and I got it over here in the water, and I'm sculling, which means paddling with one arm while fishing with the other arm. It was a little bit of a balancing act, but my granddaddy taught me how to do it. And then whenever you got a fish, you took your pinky and you hit that trigger, zit, and it took up the line. And if it was a small fish, you could just hold the line, it'd reel it in. If it was a larger fish, you had time now to put the paddle down, to take it in your hand and actually reel it in conventionally and get the line in, etc. But it was just a fast, quick way to go zip and take up the slack. You would hit that trigger and lift up at the same time, and you'd set the hook, and then it would pull the fish toward you, or at least keep the line tight while you put the paddle down. And plus, where it kind of got the nickname splat fishing as opposed to the classic fly fishing, is you would, when it hit the water, the lures you were using were quite often poppers or fake little frogs or crickets or little salamanders or things like that, and you wanted to hit the water with a little bit of a splat. So it would go pow when it hit, and you just sat there and let it slowly sink or sit there. You gave it 15, 20 seconds so the fish would hear it and look up and think that a frog had jumped into the water, a bug of some time had landed in the water, whatever. The splat was what attracted the fish's attention. And then you left it sitting there so you didn't spook him up, and then about the time you'd start to move it, he'd hit it.
Right.
And then you'd hit your line, take up, and you're good to go. But it's all but forgotten down here in the South now, and but almost all the old guys had an automatic fly reel when we were real small, and then they kind of by the I'd say by the 80s, it just was gone. You just don't see it anymore.
You can still get them, but they're not near the popularity that they were then.
Now everything's bait casting now, which is good, but it requires two hands, because you can't hold the rod and reel and run a paddle. So now you got to have a trolling motor.
Well, now you just sort of answered your own statement, because you said the word paddle.
Yeah.
Now they've got these fancy schmancy electric motors, trolling motors that you can control just by putting your foot on the board.
Yeah.
And it'll take you where you want to go, and you got room for both hands.
Yeah. That gets me, because I know, stuff has changed so much, but like you and I were talking, you never learned how to scull, which was using the paddle one-handed.
I did a lot of bank fishing because we had ponds.
Yeah.
But I knew I could paddle a boat. I can paddle a boat with the best of them, but actually sculling, I never really did understand that well.
And where I was taught how to scull first and paddle later, because the job was to ease the boat along real slow, and then if it was with Granddaddy, he's up in the bow.
Yeah.
Now you're paddling. Your job is to be propulsion.
Right.
And so you're moving him from spot to spot while he's fishing. Nobody wanted to fish and be the one driving the boat with my Aunt Willa Pearl, because Aunt Willa Pearl didn't look behind her. She was flash casting, so you're sitting there taking your life in your own hands with this damn fish hook flying by you every minute. She took my cap off one time.
Like you, why'd you get in the way?
Oh, I mean it. She had caught a big shell cracker she got, and the minute she unhooked it, like that, and she hooked my hat. It come up, it nicked my nose, and put a scratch on my nose, and it hooked and took my baseball cap right off. And she yelled and yelled at me how I had messed up her cast.
Well, you shouldn't have been in the way.
Well, after she had done that to me, and I just kind of slowly turned the boat and started heading for the dang dock, and she, where you going, where you going? And I kept paddling until I got to the dock, and I got out. And she said, where are you going? I'm going back over here. You can have the boat. I come up there when I got up on the porch. My granddaddy, her daddy said, you learned, didn't you, boy? Yes, sir. I learned why nobody wants to fish with Aunt Willa Pearl. That's why. She'll just whip this thing. Don't do it.
The uncle that gave you the oyster knife for Christmas was her brother, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, sir. I don't need this oyster knife.
Thank you, but no.
No, because I know where this is going. But yeah, as far as the springtime was the time of fishing, running trot line.
Yeah.
It had warmed up, which we ran a lot of trot lines in the winter too, but it really got it going then.
Jug fishing.
Jug fishing. Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, jug fishing it sounds weird, but it's a lot of fun. You take just an empty milk jug or some other plastic jug, like for cooking grease or something, or vinegar. Excuse me.
Usually it's about a gallon jug.
About a gallon jug, yeah. And you tie about that much string onto it, that much fishing line, and you put a hook on one end and you bait it, and then you throw it out in the pond.
And
That's it.
You put like 25 or 30 of these out at a time.
Yeah.
And what we would do is, we had the old glass. Remember when Coca-Cola bottles were in like it'd be like a 2 liter today, or 1.5 liter.
Yeah, well, they were glass.
24 ounce glass ones. When I remember, it had the aluminum screw top on it.
Yep.
And you'd take one of those and you'd put a little bit of caulking and you'd screw the lid down, and it had a lip like these do where you could tie on to it. And then you'd spiral the line around, and you had a piece of tape, you'd stick the hook up there and you'd hold it. That way you didn't hook yourself. And so you got out there and you picked it up, you pulled the hook out, you baited it, you took the line out, and you just slung the jug out yonder. Now I learned to put about 1 inch of water into it, and we painted the bottom of the jug with white paint or something where you could see it.
Yeah.
Well, you did that, and you'd turn and you'd set the jug, and you'd throw the line over the side of the boat, and you'd set the jug head up like that.
Right.
Well, when the fish tugged it, the water would run to the bottom, and now your shiny bottom went, I got one.
Yeah.
And we'd take a paint roller on a pole and take the foam thing off, so you just had the wire, and that's what you went out there and you'd hook the line and pull it back to you and pull the fish up and rebait, etc. Jug fishing.
Yeah, we used the plastic, the opaque white plastic jugs, or foggy looking opaque jugs.
Like a gallon vinegar jug today.
Yeah, that's what we used, and we, like he said, bait them up and just throw them out and let the wind take them. And I remember one night we had our porch lights on our cabin turned on, and they shone out across the pond. You could see all the jugs. And what you looked for was the one that was zinging across the water.
Yeah.
And it was my job to get in the John boat and go out there and catch the thing. One night, it was, I don't know, 11 or 11:30, and I went out there and I grabbed a hold of this one jug and I pulled it in, and there were 2 catfish on it. The summer before, my mom had been on the bank of the pond fishing, and the fish had pulled. We have the stringer that you run up through the gill and put them on it. Well, she had a nice stringer of fish, and they pulled it out of the bank where she had it set, and all of them managed to get off except the last one, the one that had the loop here, and he got his line wrapped around that other one, so I caught 2 fish on 1 hook.
Yeah.
The only time I've ever done that, and just because he deserved it, we cut the leader off of his mouth where it had been left, and put him back in. He earned it.
He earned it. He put up with enough. Turn him loose.
Turn him loose. Now we kept the other one. In full disclosure, we ate the other one.
Well, we had a live kit basket, which was made out of fine chicken wire with a little bit of screen wire.
Yep.
And it floated in the pond. And you'd go out there and you'd put the fish in there to keep them alive until you're ready to clean them or whatever. And that's where you went and you caught 2. Wasn't a mess. We went and put them in the basket.
Yeah.
And people used to put fish in a barrel that way to keep them alive until time to eat. And I remember my uncle telling me to go down there and go see how many fish was in the basket, which it had styrofoam on the top so it floated.
Right. And
a door you open up. And I went down there and opened it up, and there was probably 24 fish in that thing. And so he said, all right, that's enough, we'll do it as a mess. And we couldn't together pull that thing up out of the water. Yeah. There was so many fish in it. So then he got the bright idea that he was going to just reach in there and catch them. Well, it doesn't work that way. And so finally it was my job to sit there with the treble hook tied to the end of a broke off piece of a cane pole and try to foul hook and gig them to like gap them and pull them up out. until we dropped the number down sufficiently where we could pick the thing up out of the water.
We had a setup very similar to that, which was a basket about half the size of this tabletop, and it had a cone on one end of it where the fish would swim in, and then they were trapped. It was too small for them to get out. And we did a lot of fish trapping in our ponds like that. And we would come in and we had this hook on a sawed-off cane pole. We'd hook it and pull it up on the side of the pond, on the bank, and then we'd open it up and go through it and get our fish out, rebait it, and re-throw it back in. That's a lot of fun too.
Pine seed.
Yep.
Show them that. It's something that my northern friends may not get to see.
You sure it's not a magnolia?
It may be. Are we under a magnolia? Could be a magnolia seed. But this is a tree seed. See the wing on it?
It will helicopter down.
Yeah, when it falls, it spirals down through the wind column, but that's a tree seed right there. Happen to look up and see that. Yep, you're right, because pine seeds are brown. This is pinkish, so it probably is a magnolia. But all in all, the spring was a time of people are putting crops down. So it was a real busy time if you were on a farm, because it was time to the calves and stuff like that were starting to come in.
Right.
And so there was a lot of marking and finding and making sure of whose calf went to who, and that your calves didn't hop the fence, go into the next door neighbor's yard and become adopted. Pigs, same thing. It was a busy time in the spring. And a lot of it was for those that farmed, it was actually getting out there and getting the land broke and stuff like that. My immediate family was not farming, but we were connected to everybody else's family, so there was a lot of loaning of labor. Bartering, yeah.
Let's go back to an old ways.
Bartering.
Lots of bartering.
I can remember sitting on one of them old open Ford tractors, like a farmall, right over here, not far from here, up on the Bradshaw's land. And when it got to be light enough to see is when we started, and I rode that tractor all day, going through the peanut field, digging peanuts. That was in the fall, of course, but...
I can't believe that.
Why?
That you waited until daylight to do it. You weren't out there in the pre-dawn.
It was pre-dawn, but I mean, I don't mean nice bright light. I mean, can you see enough to see the road?
Yeah, can you see 30, 40 feet in front of the tractor?
That's enough.
Follow it.
Follow it. You know, and a cousin, her job was to be out there, and she had a fuel on the back of the pickup truck. There was an ice chest with some drinks in it, and there was a couple of sandwiches, and that was it. And when I'd come and she'd move the truck up, as I did, so I'm coming toward her, and whenever I needed something to drink, I'd be 50 or 100 yards out, and I'd do that over my head, and that meant I needed something to drink. And she'd grab a bottle of whatever it was, a Coke or whatever. And when I made the turn, she'd step up and hand it to me, so you didn't even really stop, and you keep going. So you're chugging that down. I had to wear a bandana for all the dust and the stuff blowing. Oh, God. And then when you needed something to drink, it was this and this. And so that was a sandwich and that. And it normally meant I had fuel. And so I would I'd pull up and stop half in the turn. She'd pull the truck up. I'd get off, take care of nature's call, woof down a sandwich while she's refueling the tractor while it's still running. Yeah. And then hot fuel it, snatch and check, make sure you still had oil and stuff like that, and just keep going. And the whole operation took 10 minutes, and you're right back. And just sun up till sundown riding that damn tractor. God.
Shades of NASCAR.
Oh, that metal seat with those waffle holes in it, and my bony little butt. Oh, yeah. Boy.
I still have burn marks.
Oh, I have had nightmares before being sitting on that seat.
Yeah.
Because it was painful. I mean, that's the reason you'd see me a lot of times standing up.
Well, you had to.
You just stand up and just steer like
Yeah.
that, standing up.
You had to. Because you would go numb from about the belly, from about the hips down. You had to stand up.
The first time I ever had sat so long like that, and I went to stand up and my legs didn't hold me. They were both just completely asleep and I didn't know it.
Yeah.
And I swung over and I went to the ground like a sack of feed, just whop.
What did the tractor do?
Huh?
What did the tractor do?
It sat there and putted. I was smart enough to completely take it all out of gear and everything. You know, I was not going to be, I had the opportunity when I was small to watch one of my family members nearly get run over by a tractor. That he pulled up and just kicked it out of gear. And he was bush hogging and he snatched the bush hog up.
Yeah.
Well, what was keeping him in place was the bush hog down,
Yeah.
the wheel. When he snatched it up, that lost it, and he's getting off of it, and he had just got off the thing when it went to rolling forward. And them big old tires, now he's trying to run and jump back on it with that big old tire right there. And his foot went under, but he had grabbed a hold of the steering wheel. So now when he pulled, now the tractor starts doing this, and he managed, it rolled off his foot, and he got up, but it took all the height off his foot on the right-hand side. But I got to see that as a young boy, and I figured out right quick, this thing's dangerous.
Yeah, I had something similar to that happen right over here on the bank, on the dam of this pond.
Mm-hmm.
I was coming back here around where we're sitting now, to bush hog. I didn't have the cutter on,
Mm-hmm.
but I pulled it up.
Mm-hmm.
And when I turned to go up onto the dam,
Mm-hmm.
I had pulled without thinking, I had lifted the bush hog.
Mm-hmm.
So it offset the balance.
Mm-hmm.
And I rode about a third of the way across that dam that you and I just came across on two wheels.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like forever, but it's about like that.
Yeah.
But I hit the clutch, and the front end came down and bounced, and I immediately dropped the bush hog to get the center of gravity back, and had to take a few minutes to do laundry.
I was working at a place, and they asked me, did I know how to run a bush hog? And I said, yeah. And they had a field right next to it as part of the company property and wanted me to bush hog it. And so I got on that tractor and I'm running the bush hog, and it's about 5 acres. And I'm going back and forth across it, and there was wire out there. Didn't know it. Now I'm talking about knee-deep grass. And I hit that patch of that wire and it tangled up, and I heard the racket, so I immediately killed the PTO. And I lifted it up. I got stopped and I walked around and I looked and I saw his wire. So I lifted, elevated, turned the tractor off, wait for the aircraft.
If we didn't have at least one helicopter interruption, we'd be always.
Yeah, you know we gotta have helicopters. At least we ain't had a Jake brake going down the highway yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I had pushed in the clutch, turned it off, and got out and went around back. I know better than try to pull wire out from under a running bush hog or running tractor.
That's a comfort.
Yeah, so I turned it all off, and after it was all shut down, I got back there and got my gloves on. It wasn't barbed wire or nothing. It was just kind of like a small fence wire, kind of like a hot wire.
Or hog wire.
Or maybe, yeah. And I'm sitting there trying to undo it. Well, the blades are right like this. Well, this loop goes to here, and I'm trying to get it, and when I pulled, what I didn't realize was it was actually doubled and it hooked to here. So this popped loose, and then my action caused the blade to swing around this way, and it banged me right up here above hairline and just chopped into me like a hatchet would.
Yeah.
And made like a 4-inch cut right there. Well, I'm already hot and sweaty and blood just gushed like crazy. Got in my eyes in about a minute or less, and it's 5 acres across back to the factory. And so I'm just about blind. I'm doing like this, trying to wipe blood out to see what I'm doing while trying to hold pressure on this. I finally bumped up against the building and went around the building until I found the front door and opened up, where the secretary in the front door screamed because I'm just covered in blood. And I said, you know, I said, tell her to shut up and have somebody take me to the bathroom so I can wash this out of my eyes, you know. And finally, oh my God, all these women up there, and oh my God, one of y'all shut up and grab a hold of me and guide me. You could have stood there and bleed to death. We're not going to stay. Finally, one of the guys out of the wire room had heard the racket and come up there, and he said, come on, come on. He was a Korean vet. He understood. What you got? I said, I got a head wound, but I need to rinse. He said, come on. And so he took me to the men's room. And of course, I got water, and once I got my eyes rinsed out where I could see, I reached up and I did like that and let me yell, and I had about a 4 or 6 inch cut right above hairline up there.
I bet I know what the next safety meeting was about.
No, the next safety meeting was about how to remain calm in a situation, because you had 6 women standing there screaming and going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and not one of them took action to help me. So that's what it was about.
Don't you just hate being the guy that's the subject of the safety meeting?
Sometimes it was worth it. Sometimes it was worth it. But anyway, guys, springtime was a time of fishing, turkey hunting, things like that. Of course, you can't rule out, you know, church revivals, sure, all of that. You know, springtime, Easter. That's when you got your new set of clothes, was Easter.
Yep.
You know, every year there was the Easter set of clothes that, by God, you better not get dirty. You better not nothing.
Just go from 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. The rest of it's optional.
Oh, no. Oh, no. That Sunday morning when you had to go to church for that, you don't even eat, don't look at no food. And if they're giving out chocolate bunnies, you say yes and you hand it to me, and you can have it after we get home.
That's it.
Because you're not going to get chocolate on this new shirt.
When I was about 4, it was Easter Sunday morning, and my very dear friend Walt and I were sitting on the front seat, and being, 4 and 6, we started poking.
Oh yeah, of course.
And it wound up into a full-blown Donnybrook on the front seat, on the front pew of the entire.
I was making sure we got batteries.
In front of the entire church on Easter Sunday morning.
Oh yeah.
That was the day my dad quit choir. He and Mama were singing. They sung in the choir, and that was the day that he quit. Hint, hint, hint. And but yeah, that's a funny Easter story for me. But another thing along Easter, the lines of Easter, like he said, today's the 9th day of March as we're filming this. If you're going to have a garden, now's the time to get your stuff in line.
Right now.
Traditionally, you don't plant until Good Friday. You can plant pretty much whenever you want to.
Now, this is being said by people in the South that it's already in the 80s degrees down here.
Yeah, it's been in the high 70s for a week.
You people that are up north that are having the blizzards right now, or in California that's in record snow, take it with a grain of salt, but be ready. Go ahead.
Yeah, pick and choose your times. Mm-hmm. But for those of you who are in, let's just say zone 8, which is our zone, our planting zone, go ahead now and get your stuff ready. It's not too early to go ahead and dig your garden, because you may need to get it soil tested, and your county extension office can do that. Your co-ops, your area co-ops can do that, and see if you need to have slightly more acidic soil or slightly more alkali soil. They can help you fine-tune that, and now's the time to do that before you plant. But go ahead and decide what you want in your garden, and don't get GMO seed. Get heirloom seeds, because you can save seeds that are heirloom to plant next year. But you can't plant a GMO and expect to get exactly the same plant.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you don't have any background, like we've talked about in the earlier old ways, you're already seeing some food shortages.
Yeah.
Right now. Now, the lady that does my gun butter and bullet butter, Miss Lita, has started doing microgreens.
Yes.
And you and I are going to go down there and do a interview with her. Now, what, for those of you that don't know, microgreens are kind of like, it looks like the Brussels sprouts and stuff you used to buy at the grocery store. Same basic idea. But this is something that you put under a grow light or whatever, and in a week, you harvest.
Yeah.
Well, the nutrients in that is 4 to 7 times what you would get. So a full-size thing of, let's say, broccoli gives you like 4.
Right.
This gives you 11.
Yeah.
So it's something that you can augment, and it's for those of you that don't have a place. I don't have a big garden, but I'm wanting to nutritionally augment what I'm doing. So even if you're going to be the ones that use the dry stuff, great. Learn about this, because it's something that you could do at your place, quick and easy, to add something green, really nutritious into the mix.
I think that the stuff is grown with hydroponics, which means that it grows in a liquid that is hypersaturated with your fertilizers and things like that. Don't quote me on that. When we go see Miss Lita,
we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out.
We'll get some education,
But
because we're both interested in this.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that you can put in your garage or in your basement.
Yeah.
For those of you who in winter, go ahead now and get your stuff ready. Get prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Get prepared now, so you don't have to. You're not in a crunch then. Stock up on your seeds. Get your fertilizers. You can go out in the yard and clear you off a patch of snow, and dig down with a garden trowel, a little shovel, and get you a dirt sample and take it somewhere and get it tested. And you already know what you need, so you can go in and you can spread out what the stuff that they tell you to put on it when it's time.
I have got my bucket garden going.
Yeah.
This year I expanded out to more lettuce, some snap peas, which are actually kind of like a snow pea.
Yeah.
I added squash this year, and then I've got early bloomer tomatoes, 4 of those, that they're going to produce only for about 3 months. And then I've got 4 buckets of those cherry tomatoes on top of that. So my plan is, these will come out, these early girls will come out first, and I'm going to get them, I'm going to put them up. I want to try that thing that we've seen out of Russia or Ukraine or wherever it was, the lady that puts the tomatoes in the water,
Yeah.
and she calls it in snow. I want to try that and see how that works out.
You can also preserve them in oil with onions and garlic and stuff like that in it. Do your homework, okay? There's way too much information out there for us to get it all together and pass on to you.
Mm-hmm.
Do your homework. And as I'm so fond of saying, remember when Noah built the ark?
It wasn't raining.
It wasn't raining.
Time to learn, because
He started building that ark before the rain started falling. So go ahead now and start your ark.
you're about to see, and we ain't going to get into deep politics or anything else, but the writing on the wall is pretty clear that we're about to see some growing pains. That we're going to be bringing a lot of industries back to the United States. A lot of this stuff is going to be shifting around. And for the 3 to 5 years, you're going to see
Did you
shift.
hear what he just said?
Mm-hmm.
1 days, 1 weeks, 1 months. He said 3 to 5 years.
At least till we work out the new supply chains and everything else. That don't mean that we're going to have mass starvation.
No.
But a lot of the stuff that we've been used to, like for example, Russia and Ukraine are huge wheat exporters.
Yes.
That's just went out the window because of that war on that side of the world. And so there's other things. Fertilizer is getting into a premium.
Well, Russia's a major exporter of potash. We were listening to that on the news coming down.
Yeah, and they're one of the major suppliers of potash, and that's the one component that we need here in America, because we got everything else.
Yes.
But again, so much of this stuff has been coming in from overseas, and these supply chains are now getting screwed up. So it doesn't mean that, you know, it's the doom and gloom in the world, but it would make sense to be able to make some of my own.
Sure.
Of whatever it is, being able to put up a little bit of food, a little bit of storage, so that when it is available, that's the reason our ancestors back in the past had them big old freezers and stuff, guys, because like we were just talking about, it was spring. Now's the time to get turkeys. Now's the time to get fish, etc. Now's the time to get the garden going.
Right.
I want to see about preserving those in jars because I could always turn them into some sort of paste or stewed or whatever.
Yeah, these are things that are going to be showing up on Bear's Old Wayz too.
Yeah, we're going to be doing a lot on Bear.
We're going to be doing a tag team here on Blackie's channel and then on my channel too. So it may not be the same subject or it may be a duplicate, but follow us, bear with us, and we're going to come through all through this together.
Right. That, and we had talked about, that'd be a real good is when we go interview Miss Lita, let's post it on Bear's Old Wayz.
Works.
We'll put it on yours. And I'll tell y'all it's going, and once he posts it, I'll post a link on mine. I'll say, okay, here's the thing, guys, and I'll post a link in the description box of my video so everybody knows about it. But well, that's really more in line with your channel than mine. So that'll be something that we can do with that.
Shameless plug. 2 weeks from today is the start of the spring gathering. So if you can come, now's the time to get your stuff together. I'm going to be putting out a series of videos on Bear's Old Wayz where I'm preparing to go to show you what I'm doing and what I'm thinking about taking and what I'm eliminating from taking. I've got a little teardrop camper that I'm going to be taking. Because of family reasons, I'm not going to be there the whole time. I'm going to try to make a call at least every day, but staying overnight, I'll only be able to stay 1 or 2 nights. But it's going to be fun, and I'm looking really forward to it. I know he is.
Oh yeah. So far I've got about 60 people said they're coming. We shall see. I'm happy, you know, if nobody shows up, I'm still going camping. But anybody shows up, be glad to. I'm going to do a couple little impromptu classes this year. We will be going to the surplus place on Saturday, and we will have somebody that's going to be staying there in camp to guard our gear while everybody else goes. So we'll work all this out. Well, anything else you want to talk about, brother?
Yeah, do you want to do an extension on turkey hunting, or do you want to do it separately?
Let's do it separately.
Okay.
We'll do the scout here in a little bit.
All right.
All right. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. If you have, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button before you go. And if you have not been to subscribe to Bear's Old Wayz, I'd appreciate if you'd do it.
Appreciate it.
Till next time, guys, I'm Blackie.
And Bear.
Wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.